We shall move to questions without notice. Are there any questions? I give the call to the Honourable the Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Acting Prime Minister. The dream of home ownership in this country has become a nightmare for millennials and Gen Z, who have no hope of ever owning under Labor. The Auditor-General has now launched an investigation into Labor's failed housing fund. The chair of Housing Australia has resigned, and the failed Minister for Housing is building bureaucracies instead of building homes. Why is it when Labor fails, Australians always pay the price?
Call to the Acting Prime Minister.
Well, I thank the Leader of the Opposition for her question. The first point to make is that if the Liberals are so concerned about the Housing Australia Future Fund and its contribution to providing more houses in this country, then it should have supported the Housing Australia Future Fund much earlier than it did. But the Housing Australia Future Fund, well, the Housing Australia Future Fund is now making an important contribution to the building of houses in this country. Indeed, in the Leader of the Opposition's own electorate, there are 54 homes in Thurgoona which are currently part of the first tranche of the Housing Australia Future Fund's project. In the member for Lindsay, there are 135 homes in Penrith which are being pursued. In the member for Moncrief's electorate, 213 homes are being pursued. Since we have come to government,
Members on my left
500,000 houses have been built, and that includes 5,000 social and affordable houses. Now, in the 9 years that those opposite were in government, the number of social and affordable houses that they constructed was 313. 313 in 9 years. What we have done is the biggest investment in housing that we have seen from a federal government. The Housing Australia Future Fund is a critical part of that because we care about providing affordable housing in this country. And what we have over this side is an enormous hypocrisy and a massive gap between what they say and what they do. But the Australian people absolutely saw through it.
A member for Wright is warned. Call to the member for Bean.
Thanks, Speaker. My question is to the Acting Prime Minister. How are the Prime Minister's recent engagements in the United States, Malaysia, Korea and with a range of world leaders providing economic growth and opportunities back here at home?
Question, Jack.
Call to the Acting Prime Minister.
Well, I thank the member for his question. Last night, the Prime Minister met again with President Trump, along with the leaders of Korea, Canada, New Zealand, Singapore, Thailand and Vietnam on the eve of today's APEC Leaders Summit. America is our largest two-way investment partner. We have a comprehensive strategic partnership with Singapore, which we are renewing on its 10th anniversary, and our economic relationship has never been deeper. Thailand is our third largest trading partner in Southeast Asia. We have a rapidly growing relationship with Vietnam, accounting for $30 billion in two-way trade. We have in prospect the biggest defence industry export in our country's history, and that is with Canada. The Australian and New Zealand economies are the two most integrated in the world today, and Korea is our fourth largest trading partner globally, accounting for $67 billion in two-way trade. Now, together, these 7 countries represent fully 1/4 of Australia's exports. And given that 1 in 4 jobs today is based on trade, that means that these 7 countries underpin about 1 million jobs in Australia. And that is in the context of trade being an increasing part of Australia's national prosperity, and the APEC region accounting for 3/4 of that. And so all of this is why the Prime Minister is in Korea today. He is over there fighting for Australian jobs right here. And it is really important that in doing so we place ourselves at the forefront of technology and modernity, and that is why the Critical Minerals Framework Agreement that we signed with the United States last week was so important, because the downstream processing of the critical minerals and rare earths that we have as a natural resource underpins so many modern technologies today, and it is a really exciting prospect for a new sector in this country with huge employment opportunities and a massive potential to contribute to our national wealth. Australia was a founding member of APEC under the Hawke government back in 1989, and we were so understanding then that connecting ourselves to the economies of these nations was the best strategy to lock in long-term economic growth and prosperity for our nation. And today, 36 years later, our Prime Minister is pursuing that same mission at APEC with vigour for the benefit of all Australians.
Call to the member for Fadden.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Housing. The Insurance Council of Australia has warned that Labor's reckless expansion of its Help to Buy scheme will drive up house prices by 6.6% next year and for years afterwards. They have said, quote, "If one asks who is most likely to be priced out of the market, it's lower-income first home buyers." That means a young couple buying a home worth $800,000 today could be forced to pay more than $52,000 extra. Why is it that when Labor fails, Australians pay the price?
Give the call to the Minister for Housing, the Minister for Homelessness and the Minister for Cities.
Thank you so much, Speaker, and I thank the member for Fadden for his question. Speaker, we've got a housing crisis in our country that's been cooking for 40 years. Speaker, if there's one thing that we can do that's important about this problem, we need to build more homes more quickly, because more housing means more affordable housing for all Australians. And, Speaker, that's why our government took a ruinous situation that was created by those opposite, and out of that has built the boldest and most ambitious housing agenda that a Commonwealth has had in our country since the post-war period. Now, Speaker, at the centre of that $43 billion of investment is our plan to build more homes for Australians. And we're getting on with delivering that, Speaker. We're building 55,000 social and affordable homes around our country. 5,000 are finished, 25,000, Speaker, are in planning or construction. We've set a national ambition to try to build 1.2 million homes over the coming 5 years, and the Prime Minister stood up and said, not like those opposite who said housing's got nothing to do with us, we're not going to do anything about it, we're going to be so checked out of housing we're not even going to have a housing minister. Our government's actually stood up and taken some accountability. Now, the member asked me about first home ownership. What he is really saying is that in the context of extreme housing challenges that face young people in all of our electorates around this chamber, we should look them in the eye and say, we're not going to do anything to help you. That is what you are arguing. Well, we take a fundamentally different view. We actually talk to those young people and we say to them, we think it is manifestly unfair that you face different housing opportunities than your parents and grandparents, and we are stepping up and we are doing something about it. Now, Speaker, at the centrepiece of our approach to home ownership is us expanding the 5% deposit program to every single first home buyer in the country. And, Speaker, we are immensely proud to be doing it. What we are doing, for those of you who represent the City of Sydney, young couples in your electorates are having to save for 11 years to buy their first home. Because of our government's policies, we are bringing that timeline back to 2 or 3, Speaker. One of the things that hasn't got sufficient publicity is in that 8-year period, Speaker, a couple on a normal income is going to pay $250,000 in rent, and instead of now paying off someone else's mortgage, they're getting to pay off their own because of our government. Now, Speaker, we will not shy away from the support that we are offering to young people around the country. And the simple truth is that after the complete bin fire that those opposite left us on housing, we are having to do all of the things all at the same time. And that's why we've got a $43 billion agenda. We are building more homes, we are getting renters a better deal, and we are helping more Australians into home ownership. And, Speaker, we are going to continue to do it for the next 2.5 years.
The call to the honourable member for Sturt.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Health. How is the Albanese Labor government strengthening Medicare through record investment in bulk billing? How is this making it easier for Australians to see a GP for free and to access urgent care when they need it?
Call to the Minister for Health, the Minister for Ageing and the Minister for Disability and the National Disability Insurance Scheme.
Thank you, Speaker, and thanks to the member for Sturt, the best member for Sturt since Stormy Normie Foster won the electorate back in 1969, the Don's Party election, Mr Speaker. She's already giving terrific representation and service to the beautiful eastern suburbs of Adelaide, and she's making an amazing contribution to the debate around a stronger Medicare and cheaper medicines that's deeply informed by her time as a board member of the iconic Royal Flying Doctor Service, Mr Speaker. Like everyone else on this side, the member for Sturt can well and truly look her electorate in the eye already and say, I'm delivering on the things that I promised I said I would deliver. This month, she and I visited a terrific GP clinic, the Paramount Health Centre in Campbelltown, in her electorate. And Dr Trehan, who runs that clinic, told us that that clinic does currently charge gap fees to some patients to cover the costs of running the clinic. But she also told us, Mr Speaker, that from this Saturday they will start bulk billing all of their patients all of the time, Mr Speaker. And tomorrow we'll be visiting another clinic in her electorate making exactly the same shift, Mr Speaker. Already some 1,000 clinics have informed us that they'll be shifting to fully bulk billing next week after charging gap fees this week. And that number is growing every single day, and it's on top of the 1,500 clinics that are already 100% bulk billing clinics, Mr Speaker. But the member for Sturt didn't just promise more doctors and more bulk billing and cheaper medicines, although she did promise that. She also promised a Medicare urgent care clinic for Eastern Adelaide, Mr Speaker, one of 50 that we promised at the last election. Already we've got 90 urgent care clinics operating around Australia, operating 7 days a week, extended hours, and already more than 2 million patients have gone through those clinics, Mr Speaker. A third of them under the age of 15, but every single one of them seen completely free of charge, fully bulk billed. All they had to take was their Medicare card, Mr Speaker. I'm delighted to say to the House that expressions of interest for the remaining 47 clinics have already closed, have already been assessed, and we'll be in a position over the next few weeks to make announcements about the location of those clinics, and I hope that they will all be open by Christmas time, Mr Speaker. And when they are, they'll be relieving pressure on local hospitals. They'll be delivering high-quality urgent care completely free of charge. And they'll be doing what the member for Sturt promised her electorate we'd do, and that's delivering a stronger Medicare.
Before I call the member for Mackellar, I'll just do some acknowledgement and welcomes. I'd like to inform the House that present in the gallery today are the winners of the brand new yarning competition and their families, celebrating the unique stories and experiences of First Nations secondary school students run by the Department of House of Representatives. Welcome Lincoln, Brooke, Jada Rose and Chloe. I'm also pleased to inform the House that present in the gallery today are students from Fitzroy Community School in Melbourne in the member for Wills's electorate. And also present in the gallery today are representatives from the Families of Veterans Guild, including Chair Tricia Hobson, CEO Renee Wilson and the Veteran Family Advocate Annabelle Wilson. And also, as the guest of the member for Perth, the City of Perth Lord Mayor, Councillor Bruce Reynolds. Welcome to you all. Give a call to the honourable member for Mackellar.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Acting Prime Minister. In February 2023, the Minister for Public Service announced an inquiry into public board appointments to end the Jobs for Mates culture of the previous coalition government. The Minister stated, in line with the government's commitment to transparency, a report will be published after the review is finalised in mid-2023. The government has had over 2 years to consider its findings and has repeatedly refused to make the report public. When will the government release the Briggs report and legislate a transparent, merit-based appointment process across the public sector?
Call to the Acting Prime Minister.
Well, I thank the member for her question on this important matter. As the member referred to, we commissioned Lynelle Briggs to undertake a report to Cabinet which would look at what were the appropriate standards in terms of appointing people to public sector boards. Ms Briggs has undertaken that work. The matter is in front of the Cabinet and it is there to be considered, and the Cabinet is working through the process of considering the report, and we will respond to it. And when we respond to it, we will release the report, as the Minister for the Public Service has repeatedly said, and so we will release this report, but we will do so after the Cabinet has appropriately considered it, given that this is a report to Cabinet. Now, that is the that's the normal and appropriate way in which we go about this. We listen to the interjections from the other side. The hypocrisy in those interjections is breathtaking, given that when it comes to the question of appointing people to government positions, they industrialised it in terms of who they were appointing from their ranks. That said, the Briggs report is a very important piece of work. We are considering it at the Cabinet level, and when we have responded to it, we will make it public. But on the question of transparency, which the member raises, I would also point out that it was the former Rudd Labor government which introduced the Ministerial Code of Conduct. It was the former Rudd Labor government which introduced the Lobbying Code of Conduct and the Lobbying Register, which provided transparency in relation to that. It is the Albanese Labor government which has established the National Anti-Corruption Commission, which has increased funding for the ANAO, which has strengthened whistleblower protections. So when you are looking at which party is on the side of government transparency and government accountability, it is the party which is currently running the government.
With the call to the member for Robertson.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and my question is to the Acting Prime Minister. How are the Albanese Labor government's historic investments in Medicare and the pharmaceutical benefits scheme helping Australians with the cost of living and accessing the health care that they need? Why is this important after a decade of cuts and neglect?
Call to the Acting Prime Minister.
Well, I thank the member for his question and acknowledge his expertise in asking this question. In just under 34 hours, the Albanese Labor government's bulk billing practice incentive program will begin. And over the next 4 years, we will see around 4,800 GP clinics converted to fully fledged bulk billing practices. Now, in the member for Canning's electorate, there are already 3 practices which have indicated that they want to participate in the program. And in the leader of the opposition's electorate of Farrer, there are 13 practices which have expressed an interest, and that's before the program has even begun. And that is really good news for both of them, not least of the reasons being that it means that the next time that the two of these meet, they will have a nice, easy, comfortable icebreaker in their conversation before they get on to more difficult topics. Now, this represents the biggest increase in Medicare spending since Medicare was created, and we will restore to Medicare every dollar that the Liberals cut. The Liberals froze the Medicare rebate for 6 years, putting bulk billing into freefall. We know that they wanted to abolish bulk billing through the introduction of a GP tax, and when the Leader of the Opposition was the Minister for Health, she said that the price signal of that tax was vital. She's told us that people don't value things unless they pay for them. She's warned us against a culture of dependency, and all of this says that deep in her heart, the Leader of the Opposition believes that Australians should not be able to go to the doctor for free. And that is why the Liberals represent a serious risk to Medicare. Well, this government is about providing accessible health care. And that's why on the 1st of January, in just a couple of months, we will also be capping the pharmaceutical benefit scheme scripts to just $25. That's great for those people who use Jardiance. Jardiance is a drug which manages chronic kidney disease, and it helps stop the progression of the disease to more invasive and debilitating and, for that matter, expensive treatments such as dialysis. Jardiance retails for hundreds of dollars, but in just a couple of months' time, those are using it will just pay $25 a script. And that is literally life-changing, as it is for the millions of Australians who are dependent upon access to affordable medicines. Now, there is a big difference in this chamber on healthcare, and whatever is going on that side, a core mission of our government is to provide accessible and affordable healthcare to every Australian.
With the call to the Deputy Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question goes to the Treasurer. We learnt yesterday that inflation has smashed right through the top of the RBA's target band. This is a direct consequence of the Treasurer's spending spree. Labor spending is growing 4 times faster than the economy and has reached a 40-year high outside of recession. What is the Treasurer's explanation for both unemployment and inflation being well above the RBA's forecast, not unlike the stagflation from the 1970s, which people nowadays are referring to as the Jimflation effect?
I just order the Treasurer resume his seat. I'm not happy with that descriptor. Equally so, if someone made it about the opposition or the opposition leader, I would take offence at that as well. So I'm just going to. We don't want to get into name calling. That's just not necessary, and that will, trust me, that applies to everyone inside the chamber, and I've got multiple examples where I can give that to the chamber. So we're just going to ask the member to withdraw that part, just that last little part of the question, and everyone.
I withdraw.
I thank the member for Fairfax. We want to treat each other with respect and dignity. The Treasurer has the call.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. For those of you wondering why the Shadow Treasurer cuts such a comical, almost cartoonish figure in this place, that's your answer. Because we are working through serious economic challenges and serious economic opportunities, and the best way to do that is in the considered, methodical, consultative way that defines this government, Mr Speaker. Now, if the Shadow Treasurer wants to ask me about unemployment, he needs to acknowledge that the average unemployment rate under this government is the lowest of any government in half a century. Half a century, Mr Speaker. Under those opposite, unemployment averaged 5.6%. Under this government, 3.9%, Mr Speaker. So I find it odd that the Shadow Treasurer would want to highlight that in question time in the House of Representatives. And similarly when it comes to inflation, Mr Speaker. Now, I will take advice from a whole range of places, Mr Speaker, in my course of my job as Treasurer, but I won't be taking advice on inflation from those who left us with inflation that was 6.1% and rising fast. Inflation on their watch was twice what inflation is now, and it was rising fast, Mr Speaker. And one of the reasons for that we now know, whether it's from the COVID review or other places, is that when inflation was absolutely galloping in our economy in 2022, 6.1 and rising fast, they were pouring more and more fuel onto the flames, Mr Speaker. And we know that now. That is an economic fact. That is an economic fact, and that is their legacy. This is why, Mr Speaker, they have no economic credibility, especially when it comes to inflation, especially when it comes to employment, and also when it comes to real wages, Mr Speaker. Now, I'm asked about government spending as well. Now, those opposite promised a surplus every year they were in office. They delivered 9 consecutive deficits. This side of the House, we've been here for 3 full years. We've delivered 2 surpluses and 1 much smaller deficit than we inherited from those opposite, Mr Speaker. They had spending in the economy as almost a third of the economy. We got it down closer to a quarter of the economy. They had real spending growth growing 4.1%, Mr Speaker. We've got it growing at 1.7%. This is why the questions from those opposite lack any credibility whatsoever, because we remember your record. We remember your record. We know that when we came to office, inflation was roaring, interest rates were rising, real wages were falling, living standards were plummeting. You'd only delivered deficits. There was $1 trillion in Liberal debt, and we've spent every day of our 3 and a bit years in office cleaning up the mess that they left us.
The member for Dawson and the member for Forrest are going to cease interjecting, otherwise they won't be here for the remainder of question time. We'll hear from the member for Bennelong.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Treasurer. How is the Albanese Labor government strengthening Medicare, easing the cost of living and reforming the economy? How does this compare to other approaches to health and the economy?
Call to the Treasurer.
Speaker, I thank the member for Bennelong for his question, also for being a champion for Medicare in his local community, and also for the important role that he plays in the House Economics Committee as well. Mr Speaker, we promised to roll out more responsible cost of living relief and to strengthen Medicare, and we are delivering. And this Saturday marks a really important day in both respects. Now, we are strengthening Medicare because more bulk billing means less pressure on families in local communities. We're expanding bulk billing incentives and topping up payments for practices that bulk bill every patient. And this means more bulk billing doctors in more communities, Mr Speaker. And that makes the contrast this week in this House, the contrast could not be clearer. Those opposite are divided and divisive, and we are delivering. We're strengthening Medicare, we're delivering cost of living relief, at the same time as we're making progress on the reform directions which were agreed at our Productivity Roundtable. In just a couple of months since that roundtable met, we've slashed another 500 nuisance tariffs, introduced regulatory reforms into the parliament, got the Investor Front Door pilot up and running, getting the regulators to reduce regulation, progressing a single national market with the states, clearing a backlog of 26,000 homes waiting assessment, finalising the AI plan, the public sector AI strategy, reforming the super performance test, signed off on the first set of state and territory reforms under the Productivity Fund. And today we're introducing new laws into the parliament to reform our environmental approvals. Now, these EPBC changes are better for the economy and they're better for the environment as well. They represent a faster process, driving more productivity with more transparency and stronger protections for the environment. Now, Mr Speaker, there's no shortage of challenges in our economy or in the world. We know that. But we also know that by working through these challenges in a considered and consultative and methodical way, we are making progress. We're helping with the cost of living. We are strengthening Medicare. We've secured our AAA credit rating from Fitch this week, Mr Speaker. We're making our economy more productive over time, and we're delivering for the Australian people. And again, I invite the House to consider the contrast between all this progress that we're making, Medicare, cost of living, the economy more broadly, and the divided and divisive rabble over there, Mr Speaker. Just in the last couple of weeks, we've had the member for Canning spit the dummy. We've had the member for New England spit the dummy. I think the member for Hume tried to spit the dummy, but with him it's always hard to tell. The difference is between us delivering, them divided and divisive.
Order. Order. Members on my right will cease interjecting. The member for Riverina has the call.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Energy and Climate Change. Labor promised Australians that their power bills would fall by $275 in 2025. Is the minister aware that it is now 2025 and that electricity bills are up by nearly 40%? Why did the minister mislead Australians?
The member for Spence is warned. The Minister for Climate Change and Energy has the call.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Yes, I am aware it's 2025. I'm not entirely sure the National Party is. Mr Speaker, I'm also aware that there are considerable pressures in our energy system, as there are around the world. I'm also aware of the AEMO quarterly Energy Dynamics report released today, which is a welcome progress report, which shows wholesale prices down 27% year-on-year and 38% quarter-on-quarter. I see this as good progress, with much more to do. And there is no coincidence. It is no coincidence that the quarterly report, which showed a 38% reduction in wholesale prices, also shows the highest renewable penetration for that quarter in Australian history, Mr Speaker. This is the sign of progress. Now, we have never said that there isn't a lot more to do. We haven't said that there aren't pressures in the system, which is why we've introduced 3 rounds of energy bill relief, which were opposed by those opposite.
Is now warned.
That's the difference between the two parties in this House, the government and the opposition, is that we recognise the need to ensure that we have more of the most reliable and cheapest form of energy, which is renewables, and those opposite are opposed to it.
Give the call to the member for Newcastle.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Women. How has the Albanese Labor government's investments into healthcare created more choice and increased affordability for women?
Call to the Minister for Infrastructure, Transport, Regional Development, Local Government and the Minister representing the Minister for Women.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker, and can I thank the member for Newcastle for the question. The member for Newcastle is one of the people in this place who has done a huge amount, not just for women's health but across the whole spectrum of issues that affect women. You couldn't have a greater champion than the member for Newcastle. Women's health care is, of course, not just a women's issue. It is crucial to our families, to our communities and our economy that women are able to exercise choice and control over their health care. As a government, we do understand this, and it's why, when we came to government in 2022, we made it one of our top priorities. This government has been working to reverse years of neglect to women's health, with our $729 million package to deliver more choice, lower costs and better health care for women. Women have asked government to take their health care seriously, and we have listened. Our landmark women's health package could save women and their families thousands of dollars across their lifetimes. And I'm very pleased to report that in just 48 hours, many of these changes will come into effect. From the 1st of November, women will have better access to affordable contraceptive options thanks to this government's women's health package. We're providing Australian women more choice, lower costs and better support for long-term contraceptives, with larger Medicare payments and more bulk billing for IUDs and birth control implants. Medical rebates for insertion of IUDs and birth control implants will increase by up to 150%, with around 300,000 women each year expected to save up to $400 in out-of-pocket costs. And we are funding free training for healthcare practitioners in the insertion and removal of IUDs to boost the number of qualified practitioners and improve access to services. A 40% bulk billing incentive will incentivise health professionals to provide long-acting contraceptive services and support more women to choose the contraceptive options that work best for them. We're also providing new contraceptive options, NuvaRing, which is through the PBS, providing women more choices at a much more affordable cost. Before the listing of this contraceptive option on the PBS, women might have paid more than $270 a year. Now they will only have to pay $31.60 per script or $7.70 if they're concessional. These changes should not be underestimated. For many women, they are life-changing. They, of course, come on top of the first PBS listings of new oral contraceptives in more than 30 years. The AMA has said our package is a major investment in women's health. The College of GPs has said better funding for women's health is an investment that will pay off and improve health care. On this side of the chamber, we are investing in the health of women.
The call to the member for Goldstein.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Employment. Under Labor's administration of the CFMEU, whistleblowers are saying that organised crime figures have a, quote, stronger position, perhaps even stronger, than they had 14 or 15 months ago.
Order. The member for Goldstein will pause. The member for Macarthur will leave the chamber under 94A. Order. No. Every time the same thing will happen. It's that simple. The member for Goldstein will begin his question again, and he's going to be heard in silence. I'm showing some respect.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Employment. Under Labor's administration of the CFMEU, whistleblowers are saying that organised crime figures have a, quote, stronger position, perhaps even stronger than they had 14 or 15 months before. We now know that the head of Victorian CFMEU, Zac Smith, who is a member of the Minister's National Construction Industry Forum and a member of the Labor Party's National Executive, has had meetings approved by the administrator with misogynist thug John Setka. Does Mr Smith still sit with the minister as a member of the National Constructive Industry Forum? And if he does, will Mr Smith be advising the minister at the next meeting?
Call to the Minister for Employment and the Minister for Workplace Relations.
Well, thank you, Speaker, and I'd like to thank the Shadow Minister for his question. And his question really goes to the role that our government has been playing in making sure that we have a construction industry that is free from corruption. Of course, this did not happen under those opposite, of course, and I might give a few examples in a minute, but what I will go to firstly is the National Construction Industry Forum is playing an incredibly important role of bringing unions and employers and government together on how we tackle this issue. Of course, I make no apologies to actually bringing people together to look at how we tackle these issues together. And I would invite the Shadow Minister to look at the Task Force report, which has been made public, and also look at the work that's being undertaken. Because guess what? Employers and unions are united in what work needs to be done to make sure that our construction industry is as productive as possible. But I thought I might go through some of the work that has been done under this government to actually address crime and corruption in the construction industry. Now, I would draw the House's attention firstly to a number of members. Michael Greenfield.
The Minister will pause. She can just pause for a sec. The member for Goldstone will raise his point of order.
Thank you, Speaker. My question was straightforward. It was to ask whether Mr Smith will be advising the point of order's relevance, which is will Mr Smith be advising the minister at the next meeting?
Yes, I know that was the question, but there was a very long preamble to that question, and if that had just been the short, sharp question, the minister wouldn't be able to talk about the issues that you raised. You can resume your seat. You're not. I don't want to keep you. Order. Yeah, and that's fine. The member's raised a question, but when you do a very long preamble and you went over time with the question, the minister is talking about the membership of the group that you talked about. Just so everyone knows, I like to explain everything. She's talking about exactly who's on the group, what is involved. So I think everyone would agree she's being directly relevant. Yes, there is a part of the question that you'd like answered, but I can't compel the minister to do that. I can compel her to be directly relevant, and she is being directly relevant right now. So I'll continue to listen carefully to the minister.
Thank you, Speaker. And of course, our government has absolutely been committed to tackle crime and corruption in the construction industry. Of course, it was ignored for years and years by those opposite. And I'll just give a few examples. Under the Coalition and the ABCC's watch, Michael Greenfield, Darren Greenfield, Rita Miller and Rob Kerr were found to be involved in coercion and intimidation of a Sydney crane company. What did the ABCC do? They gave them a slap on the wrist. They are gone under this government. In Victoria, in 2013, CFMEU official Derek Christopher was found to assault a building manager at a site in Melbourne. Under the ABCC and those opposite, a slap on the wrist. Gone under our government. Let's look at Michael Ravbar. Michael Ravbar, who was exposed in the Jeffrey Watson's work, showed that in 2020 the Coalition under their failed ABCC allowed him to use standover tactics, including of course being told a female public servant to be dragged out of here. Under those opposite, he kept his job. Under us, he is gone. If we want to talk about who is taking action, it is our government cleaning up the industry while those stood by and did nothing.
On a point of order, the manager.
Speaker, the Minister was reading from a document of serious criminals, so we'd like to ask her to table that document for the benefit of the House.
Was the Minister reading from confidential notes? Yes. Was the Minister reading from confidential notes? Yes. Okay, well, let's move on. The member for Deakin has the call.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Education. What is the Albanese Labor government doing to help Australians with student debt and build a better and fairer education system?
Give the call to the Minister for Education.
Thanks very much, Mr Speaker, and can I thank my friend the member for Deakin for this question. As a former school teacher, he understands better than most of us the power of education to change lives. Mr Speaker, at the election we promised to cut student debt by 20%. The Australian people voted for it. We've passed legislation now to make it happen, and the Tax Office is working on this right now, and in a few weeks' time this will all begin. Phones will start beeping. You'll get a text message or an email telling you that your student debt has been cut by 20%. Millions of Australians will get this message, and all of that beeping and dinging of phones, that'll be the sound of $16 billion coming off the shoulders of young Australians. Millions of Aussies will save thousands of dollars. On average, about $5,500, changing lives. And, Mr Speaker, the member for Deakin asks me about this, but he also asked me what else we're doing to build a better and a fairer education system. Well, this year we signed agreements with every state and territory to fix the funding of our public schools, to put them on a path to full and fair funding, something that no government has ever done. It is the biggest new investment in public schools by an Australian government ever. And it's not a blank cheque, it's tied to real reforms, practical reforms that we know work. Things like explicit teaching, phonics checks and numeracy checks when kids are little in Year 1 to identify the children who are behind and need more help, and small group tutoring or catch-up tutoring to help the same children to catch up. And 2 weeks ago, we took the next step. 2 weeks ago, education ministers met and agreed to bring forward work on the national curriculum, starting with maths, and starting with the first 3 years of maths. If you get maths, it helps to set you up for success. It's critical for work and for life, and it's really important to get the basics at school early. If you don't get the basics right in the first few years of school, you can't build on it. Learning maths is cumulative. You learn it step by step, and that's why we have to get the first 3 years right. A number of principals and teachers have told us that they think the current maths curriculum here is too complex, and others have told us that teachers need more support to implement it with clearer advice about what to teach in what order. And that is why we'll start here. It's the first part of the curriculum that we're going to work on, but it won't be the last.
Before I call the honourable member for Mayo, I'd like to advise the House we've been joined by a delegation from Kiribati government, led by the Minister for Health and Medical Services, the Honourable Bulsi Nawan. Welcome to you all. Give the call to the honourable member for Mayo.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is for the Minister for Aged Care and Seniors. Every Mayo home care provider that I've researched is lifting its fees on Saturday from 40% to a 100% increase. One provider is charging non-grandfathered, self-funded retirees and part pensioners a co-payment of up to $132 per hour for meal preparation and up to $101 per hour co-payment for showering on a Saturday. Most older Australians can't afford this. Will you please look at the price capping and look to bring it forward?
Call to the Minister for Aged Care and the Minister for Seniors.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and I thank the member for Mayo for her question and her ongoing commitment to ensuring that older people in her community do get safe, dignified and high-quality aged care. Of course, from Saturday, with bipartisan support, We herald the arrival of the new Support at Home program, which is a new generation of aged care for every single older person across Australia, and it's to this program that the member's question pertains. From Saturday, we will ensure that administration prices under the home care program are capped. They have previously been exorbitantly charged by some providers, not all providers, but by some providers, and so caps will come into place at 10% around most administration fees. We want the money that is afforded to older people for their care to be used for their care, not for administrative purposes. We also have the Independent Pricing Authority having issued pricing guidance to both consumers and providers, a better level of transparency and understanding for the entire sector around what appropriate pricing for services looks like. And from July 2026, the Independent Pricing Authority will, of course, introduce the pricing caps to ensure that no older person is inappropriately charged for the services. Of course, Mr Speaker, we have to understand the road that we have trodden to get to this point. We had a Royal Commission which uncovered extraordinarily distressing stories of mistreatment of older people. It was mononymously named, the report rather was mononymously named neglect. For 9 long years, those opposite, including the Leader of the Opposition in her position as Health Minister, neglected older people across our country. And finally, Labor has come to the plate to ensure that every single older Australian can be afforded the safe, dignified and high-quality aged care that those opposite should have done a long time ago.
Give the call to the Chief Government Whip.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Employment and Workplace Relations. What is the Albanese Labor government doing to protect workplace entitlements of parents who suffer the devastating loss of a child to stillbirth or early infant death?
Call to the Minister for Employment and the Minister for Workplace Relations.
Thank you, Speaker. I'd like to thank the member for Lawler for the question and for her advocacy for those parents who have suffered the devastating loss of a child. Experiencing stillbirth or the death of a child is an inconceivable tragedy. And unfortunately, for some parents, it becomes a too real reality. The last thing any parent should have to deal with is, after grieving the loss of a child, is the uncertainty around their employer-paid parental leave. It is for those parents that our government has introduced the Fair Work Amendment Baby Prayers Bill, which passed through the House today. The bill is named after Priya, who heartbreakingly died when she was just 6 weeks old. Priya's mother explained after informing her employer her child had passed away, she lost access to her paid parental leave and had to negotiate to return to work while grieving the loss of the child. Priya's parents were determined to protect others from the same fate and began advocating for change. Our government listened, and we're making that change happen. Baby Priya's bill introduced a principle into the Fair Work Act that protects employer-paid parental leave in the event a child is stillborn or dies. It brings these protections in line with government-paid parental leave and unpaid leave arrangements. This bill only applies where there is a lack of clarity on an employee's leave if a child is stillborn or dies after birth. Priya's bill has sparked an outpouring of public support, like Tammy, who wrote, "I remember having to go back to work within 6 weeks after the loss of my baby daughter. I am so pleased there has been the needed reform in this space." And while it's been heartening to see support across the parliament, it has been disappointing to see the efforts of a few who are trying to make this something that it's not. This morning I got a message from Priya's mum, who reminded us all about what this bill is about. Priya's mum said, "I want to sincerely thank every speaker who has supported this bill with such compassion, sensitivity and care. I am profoundly grateful to everyone who has embraced and supported this legacy of love. No parent should have to go through what Priya's parents experienced, and that is why our government has acted."
Give a call to the member for Cowper.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Assistant Treasurer. Recent collapses like Shield and First Guardian have put over $1 billion of Australians' hard-earned retirement savings at risk. How many times has the government ignored warnings from Treasury and ASIC to effectively regulate these schemes?
Call to the Assistant Treasurer and the Minister for Financial Services.
I thank the honourable member for the question, and I acknowledge his interest in this area, and I look forward to engaging with him and members across this chamber constructively on this issue. I know that this affects members across this chamber in terms of how it's affected their constituents, and I want to acknowledge from the outset how distressing this has been for many people who have lost considerable amounts of funds. There are many individuals and families who have lost a significant proportion of their life savings. I've met with victims of these collapses, and I've heard firsthand harrowing stories, and I understand how difficult this has been. Can I stress that the focus of ASIC, the independent regulator, over recent months has been to protect investor funds, and it has undertaken a range of actions to do so. It has a range of actions already underway in court. This includes actions in relation to individuals involved in the financial advisors involved in these collapses. It involves also actions against individuals involved in the managed investment schemes. Importantly, there were also significant actions in relation to the platforms, and I welcome the fact that recently there was an agreement reached between Macquarie and ASIC, which saw over $300 million returned to investors. So a significant proportion of the investors in the Shield MIS will see a full return of their capital. But I do acknowledge that there is more work to be done, and I continue to work with ASIC and with other regulators in relation to the immediate priority of protecting investor interests. What I would also say is that
the Minister will pause and the member for Cowper will take his point of order.
Thank you. The point of order is on relevance. I appreciate the Minister is entitled to preamble. The question was in relation to how many times did the government ignore warnings from Treasury and ASIC?
The Minister has covered some ground. He was asked a specific question, so he won't be able to – I can't compel him to give him the number that you're requesting, but he won't be able to go too much longer because he'll need to be directly relevant, and he can choose to answer the question as long as it's being directly relevant, and so far he has been, and he has a minute remaining.
Thank you. And what I can say is I haven't ignored any warnings. When I was notified of this matter earlier this year, I very quickly sought a briefing from my department in relation to the matter. Following on from that, having found out about these matters, I wrote to APRA to receiving briefings from APRA in relation to what further actions might be needed in relation to platforms. And I've been working constructively with the Financial Services Council and with the industry on that matter. Furthermore, I've written to ASIC in relation to whether or not capital holding requirements of MISs are sufficient. And having been notified of these matters, I have asked my department to provide me with briefings in relation to how we might strengthen regulatory arrangements going forward. So what I would say to this chamber and of course to the member who's asked this question is that as we consider options going forward, I certainly look forward to working constructively with members of this House in order to find ways we can strengthen arrangements going forward.
Yes. Call to the honourable member for Barton.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Housing, Homelessness and Cities. How is the Albanese Labor government working to build more homes for Australians? And what other approaches are there, and what is standing in our way?
Give a call to the Minister for Housing, the Minister for Homelessness and the Minister for Cities.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and I want to thank the member for Barton. She is one of the brilliant, strong and energetic class of 2025 who are already having a transformative effect over the work of this parliament, and I am incredibly lucky to call her a colleague. And I know how proud she is, Speaker, to be a part of a government that is delivering better housing opportunities for the people of her electorate. In Barton alone, Speaker, over 1,000 people have gotten into their first home through our 5% deposit program and with our government's backing. And it's not just that, Speaker. We are building about 400 social and affordable homes under the Housing Australia Future Fund in her electorate. It is an epic project that the member and I have visited together, Speaker. Just this one project alone is going to change the lives of hundreds and hundreds of people who desperately need housing in her electorate, and we are damn proud to be making it happen. Now, Speaker, we've got a housing crisis in our country that's been cooking for 40 years. And for all of the complexity that's a part of this debate, there's one simple thing that we desperately need to be doing, and that is building more homes for Australians. And that is exactly what our government is doing, Speaker. We've amassed an historic $43 billion, and the majority of those dollars are going straight into building more homes for Australians. And we're seeing really big impacts of these investments, Speaker. 520,000 homes built since we came to government. We're rolling up our sleeves and doing something that the Commonwealth has not done at scale for decades, and that is building homes ourselves. 55,000 social and affordable homes, 5,000 already completed, 25,000 that are actually in planning or construction right now. And of course, we've seen that fantastic leadership from the PM, where he stood up, not washed his hands of the problem like those opposite, but said we are going to work together across the 3 levels of government to build 1.2 million homes over a 5-year period. Now, Speaker, we know there is more work to do, and that's why we're getting on with it, getting on with delivering this absolutely massive agenda. Now, the member for Barton asked me about some alternatives, and there are some quite terrifying alternatives out there, Speaker. The worst that we see is that exhibited by those opposite, who sat for 9 years and did pretty much absolutely nothing about a housing crisis that was building before their eyes. Now, we're getting a little bit of back chat, so let me remind those opposite of the record here. Not only have they spent the last 3 years trying to block and delay all our critical programs, but over a 9-year period, Speaker. You're not going to believe this. 9 years. Do you know how many social and affordable homes they built? 373, Speaker. How many homes did they build in the whole state of Victoria in 9 years, Speaker? 0. How many homes did they build in the whole state of Queensland? 0. How many homes did they build in the whole state of Western Australia? 0. The only silver lining is we've finally found a net zero target that the coalition can get behind. Speaker, we're getting on with the job of delivering. That's our priority in housing every single day.
Call to the honourable member for Wentworth.
My question is for the Treasurer. Many people in the business community and at the Economic Reform Roundtable have asked for regulation that better enables growth as well as manages risk. But any permanent consolidation of red tape is hard when the incentives for regulators and, frankly, politicians is for just to add more and more complexity. How can the government permanently shift incentives to reduce regulatory complexity, and will you set targets for reductions in regulatory complexity?
Call to the Treasurer.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I want to thank the member for Wentworth not just for her question, but for being a really important contributor to the Economic Reform Roundtable that we hosted here just a couple of months ago, Mr Speaker. Now, I can hear the opposition leader chirping at me about the Economic Reform Roundtable. When she was down the hill with the Australian Industry Group, she said it was a useful discussion and very welcome conversation. But anyway, leaving that aside, Mr Speaker, you did. I'll show you. I'll table it. Mr Speaker, more seriously. Mr Speaker.
Order. The Treasurer will just return to the question.
Mr Speaker, I thank the honourable member for Wentworth for her important question, and I thank her for the role that she's played as we work through some of the issues that she raises in her question. The member for Wentworth knows that even with the progress we're making in our economy, particularly in the private sector, our economy is not productive enough. And one of the ways that we make our economy more productive is we find ways to reduce compliance costs, and one way that we do that is to reduce complexity and wind back red tape where we can. Now, obviously, regulation has a useful role to play in our economy so long as it's serving the purpose for which it's intended. But I think the government recognises, the member recognises, participants at the roundtable recognise as well that we have some work to do to wind back some of this complexity and wind back some of this red tape. The member for Wentworth has asked me about targets. We have been considering targets. We will work with the Productivity Commission to see if those targets are appropriate. But we haven't been waiting. We've actually taken a number of quite substantial steps just in the last couple of months since the roundtable to wind back red tape. We've slashed another 500 nuisance tariffs that will reduce compliance costs for a lot of businesses. We've introduced the regulatory reforms into the parliament, 60 improvements across 13 agencies. We've got the investor front door pilot up and running. That's about quicker approvals. We're getting the regulators to reduce unnecessary regulations. The Assistant Treasurer is working with me and the Council of Financial Regulators to unwind some of the unnecessary data duplication, for example. We've asked the Board of Tax to help us reduce complexity in the tax system. We're progressing a single national market with the states, harmonising standards, national occupational licensing, a number of important measures there. We've started clearing a backlog of 26,000 homes because the regulatory burden on building homes is still too great. We recognise that. We've signed off on a whole bunch of reforms with the states and territories to wind back complexity as well. I could go on, Mr Speaker, but I think the House gets the point that we have taken substantial steps when it comes to winding back red tape. We know that there's more work to do. Our way to improve productivity in our economy is not like them, which is to make people work harder and longer for less, but to work through these issues in a sensible and methodical way. The member for Wentworth is playing a constructive role in that, if only those opposite were as well.
The call to the honourable member for Griffith.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Climate Change and Energy. How are the Albanese Labor government's policies to deliver more renewable energy backed by batteries helping Australians? What policies would threaten this progress?
Give the call to the Minister for Climate Change and Energy.
Well, thank you, Mr Speaker. I thank my honourable friend for the question. And it was, of course, in her now electorate that the Prime Minister and I announced the cheaper home batteries policy during the recent federal election campaign. It was a great day, although the member for Griffith and I were both wearing cheaper home battery T-shirts, and the combination of renewable energy in a T-shirt would be particularly triggering for the opposition. I know, Mr Speaker, but I digress. I am happy to report to the House that since we announced that policy, 104,900 Australians have introduced a cheaper home battery into their house or their small business. And that's 104,900 households and small businesses reducing their bills and their emissions. And there's a similar story across the country. And again, I update the House on AEMO's quarterly figures released today, which show the highest renewable penetration in Q3 in Australian history and show energy prices down 27% year-on-year and 38% quarter-on-quarter at a wholesale term, which is good progress and a good step forward with much more to do. Now, the member for Griffith asked me what policies might threaten this progress, and of course we're seeing a lot of them over the course of this week. The member for Wannon released a bit of a policy update in the House during the week. He said that his approach as Energy Minister would be to sweat the coal assets for longer and called for us to keep the coal-fired power stations working harder and longer, apparently unaware that as of today, just today, Mr Speaker, there are 11 separate coal-fired power units out of action, broken down, not working. 3.6 gigawatts. These are unreliable units that are now the biggest threat to reliability in our energy system, and those opposite want to see them working longer and harder. We want to see appropriate investment to see them replaced, see them in due course in an orderly transition replaced with new energy for the future, so that those communities that have powered Australia for so long can power us into the future. And of course it's a big day for the opposition tomorrow. They have their big meeting, their big loving, their big briefing about net zero. We had a contribution overnight from the former Treasurer, Energy Minister, Home Affairs Minister, Health Minister and Industry Minister of the Morrison government in one LinkedIn post by Scott Morrison, Mr Speaker, saying that they should move away from net zero. This just shows us the Liberal Party hasn't changed. The man who stood at this dispatch box and held a lump of coal is now telling them it's okay to move away from net zero because they haven't learnt. They haven't got the memo from the Australian people or from the 104,000 households that are getting on with the job. With another 1,000 households, I'm sure we'll do it tomorrow, and another 1,000 households on Monday, installing a cheaper home battery with support of the Albanese Labor government, as we are transitioning this economy and this energy system to make it fit for the future, while those opposite are stuck in their denial and delay.
The member for Lyon, before I call the member Durack, interjected 8 times during that answer, so she's warned, and I'm sure she won't do any more interjections. Well, I hope. Give the call to the member for Durack.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Climate Change and Energy. On Tuesday, the Minister made a commitment to Australia's heavy industry, saying, and I quote, "I can guarantee that we will ensure that energy policy is designed to ensure the supply of cheap and reliable energy." But today, the CEO of the Chamber of Minerals and Energy of WA warned that electricity costs are on, and I quote, "an unsustainable trajectory, preventing expansion activities in a region that is experiencing booming interest in both gold and critical minerals." Minister, is this really what a future in Australia looks like?
Give the call to the Minister for Climate Change and Energy.
Well, thank you, Mr Speaker. I thank the honourable member for the question, and I'm sure the Chamber of Minerals and Energy and the honourable member supports everything this government has done in recent weeks to support the mining industry in Australia and critical minerals in the great state of Western Australia, Mr Speaker, with the Prime Minister's leadership and the leadership of the Minister for Resources, and engaging in proper international diplomacy, engaging in proper interactions with our key trading partners. That's what a future made in Australia looks like. Proper investments and a proper calibration of industry and energy policy, as well as foreign and trade policy, to ensure that our great critical minerals that have so much capacity to power not only Australia but the rest of the world. We have a periodic table of minerals under our earth. We have 9 out of the 10 minerals necessary to make a battery in our country. We think that's a good thing. And we want to see more of those minerals exploited and more value added in Australia. And batteries made in Australia and minerals processed in Australia. That's our vision. Your vision is stuck in your 10 years of denial and delay while you're arguing tomorrow about whether climate change is real and whether humankind has anything to do with it and whether government should even bother to try. Well, that's why you are out of office now, and you are showing the Australian people continually you are not fit for modern government in Australia.
Give the call to the honourable member for Richmond.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Health. How will the Albanese Labor government's record investment in bulk billing make it easier to see a GP for free? And how will the investments that kick off this Saturday make a difference for Australians after a decade of cuts and neglect?
Give the call to the Minister for Health and Ageing and the Minister for Disability and the National Disability Insurance Scheme.
Thank you, Speaker, and thank you to the member for Richmond. For more than 20 years in this place, she has been one of the strongest voices for better health care for regional Australia. And we're soon going to be able to announce together the location of the new Medicare Urgent Care Clinic in the Tweed Valley, which I know she is looking forward to enormously, Mr Speaker. But like everyone else on this side of the House at least, she's also looking forward to this Saturday because, Mr Speaker, the 1st of November is going to be a red letter day, Mr Speaker, a red letter day for health care in this country, because on the 1st of November we're listing the 4th contraception on the PBS in just 12 months. After 30 years of not a single addition, 4 in just 12 months, Mr Speaker. On the 1st of November, as the Minister for Transport said, new Medicare rebates are going to save around 300,000 women $400 to access contraceptive IUDs and implants, Mr Speaker. And on the 1st of November, of course, as the member said, the largest investment in bulk billing in the history of Medicare kicks off, Mr Speaker. It's an investment that's good for doctors, and it's an investment that's obviously and most importantly good for patients, Mr Speaker. But the reason why the member for Richmond is such a strong supporter of this investment is it's particularly good for regional Australia, Mr Speaker. This week, I'll talk about Maranoa. This week, a standard bulk billed consult in a beautiful town like Ballina gets about $42 from Medicare, Mr Speaker. Next week, it'll be $82. $42 to $82 in 1 week, Mr Speaker. So I do wonder, where are the Nationals, if it's so good for regional Australia? Where are the Nationals, I wonder? You know, they stood by, did nothing when Liberals, led by the Leader of the Opposition, ripped the heart out of Medicare by freezing the Medicare rebate, and it's the same story today, Mr Speaker. What about the Leader of the Nationals Party? Well, there are 27 clinics who are going to be fully bulk billing in Maranoa next week, Mr Speaker. But what do we hear from the Leader of the Nationals? Nothing. Nothing, Mr Speaker. The member for Flynn up there, he's been pretty chatty over the last couple of weeks. 22 clinics going to bulk billing next week. Crickets, absolute crickets from the member for Flynn and the chatty member for Fadden. 22 clinics as well. Absolute crickets, Mr Speaker. They talk non-stop about everything except healthcare, everything except bulk billing, everything except cheaper medicine. Well, that's all right by us, Mr Speaker, because we've got even more members on this side representing regional Australia, and they're willing to fight for bulk billing. They're willing to fight for the power of this beautiful little card, and fight for a stronger Medicare.
Oh, the member for Page, on that note, can leave the chamber because he was on a warning. Order. A warning is a warning. The Acting Prime Minister.
I ask that further questions be placed on the notice paper.